everybody, this is Eric Slouf at the VMworld Solutions Exchange. I'm at the booth of Rubrik and I'm joined by Chris Wall, my good old friend. Chris, how are you?
Hey, fantastic. Hello out there. Hey, let's go.
So Chris is a well-known blogger and he has written a lot of articles regarding vSphere 6.5. We're allowed to say it now. So the launch this morning during the keynote, you immediately spun up all your blog posts. What are the main topics you're describing in your posts?
Look, it's all about automation, right? So wrote it ahead of time, had it all automatically come out. But 6.5 has me excited, which I haven't been in a while. And that's because high availability got upgraded, DRS got upgraded. The vCenter Server Appliance is now, I hate to say this publicly, but going to replace the Windows box. There's really no reason to run the Windows vCenter anymore, and I talk about the reasons why. I mean, it has Update Manager now, there's a native application level high availability built into vCenter. It's great. So I'm really excited about 6.5 release, specifically for vCenter and the vCenter ecosystem updates.
Right. So that was the update in a nutshell. Let's look at some specific topics you mentioned. The DRS is now able to migrate virtual machines to a host to prevent downtime. So if a host is signaling that there is something wrong with the hardware, we can do an automated evacuation of virtual machines. That's something the customers really want, didn't they?
Yeah, proactive DRS. It's nice to say, all right, let's not just wait for the failure, let's actually preventatively get rid of that host, move the workloads off. I mean, that was something I liked. The other one was something a little snarky. I had written some PowerShell code a long time ago to help balance the VMs across hosts because I kept running into an issue where I went to maintenance mode a host and it would always go for the one with a bajillion VMs and move them all around and then move them again. And I said, hey, I just want to spread them around kind of like peanut butter. And in this release, they have an option within the DRS policies to make my workload spread like peanut butter across the hosts, which is great for a number of reasons. There's no reason to have one host completely slammed and the other one's not doing anything, even if the VMs are being entitled. I mean, now I have a smaller failure domain potentially, the maintenance mode takes less time, so I'm actually really excited to see that feature, just for the snark factor of knowing that I wrote code forever ago and they were like, no one would ever want that. Now they do, yay. So.
Yeah, it's something I experienced during the delivery of my training courses too, that people were looking at the DRS cluster and the cluster was imbalanced, but they always complained there's nothing happening, although there are 7 VMs there and only 2 there. What I told them, there is no reason to migrate, but now finally we have something to rebalance the cluster. Another thing you mentioned is the vCenter appliance with the new VUM feature. We don't have to install the update manager on the separate Windows host anymore. It's fully integrated into vCenter. That's a good thing. And the thing with clustering, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Update Manager was really the last reason that I felt we needed to run Windows, because you'd have to run a Windows box anyways by the licensing. So now you can run Update Manager. It's actually default embedded into the vCenter Server Appliance, which is cool. And also you can deploy multiple vCenter Server Appliances in an active-passive configuration. They'll use 2 network adapters, one for public communications, to get to the API and whatnot, and a private one to have kind of the synchronous replication of the database as well as asynchronous replication of the files for config and whatnot. And that doesn't have to be over the same L2 network, which originally I thought, okay, they're going to make me do a stretch L2. No, as long as the 2 networks are unique, the public and private are unique from one another, you can use any L3 network you want. So if you're doing cross-clustering or cross data centers, that's an option, as long as there's a witness that can kind of see what the vMon service is going after. So it's a much more, it's a much more seamless experience. It seems to be just click, 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 next, finish, you're done, versus vCenter Heartbeat, which worked, but wow, you needed professional services to get that running. It was really clunky. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and in the end, Heartbeat wasn't even supported anymore, so we were bound to Microsoft clustering or something. There wasn't a real good solution, but now there is with the appliance. Let's go to the user interfaces, which allows us to manage everything. We have a new HTML5 client, we have a host client, the fat C# client isn't supported anymore, which is a pity because it was a nice client. What are your feelings about those new user interfaces?
Well, I'm going to pour a little liquor out for my friend, the C# client, because I used it we all grew up with that thing. And I was very comfortable with the key commands and whatnot. The web client's still around for a little bit longer, running on Flex and Flash. They're going to try to make some performance improvements for that. So I kind of get that. I'm really more excited about the RESTful APIs and the way that you can programmatically control vCenter, because that to me is the way going forward, and the fact that the vSphere client is going to be embedded with the vCenter server appliance in 6.5, which the Fling was super popular. Everyone likes the fact that I don't have to install SIP anymore, I don't have to do Flex or Flash or anything like that. It runs on all the platforms if you're into Linux or your phone or whatnot. So I think that's the right way forward, and they're using the Clarity UI standards, which is what the vSphere client looks like. So you're going to get a more seamless experience across everything, including the vCenter server appliance now has its own appliance management interface with more features. Like, it was always there, but now it's fully featured, shows you the database information, CPU, memory, network, all that kind of stuff. So they're really driving home towards that one feeling of the Clarity UI across all of their products, and getting rid of, like, who wants to install Java and Flash? Like, nobody wants to do that anyway, so that's good.
A lot of platforms didn't even support it anymore, like Linux and that sort of stuff. So if we look at the virtual machine, that's in the end where everything comes together. We have some cool features like encryption. We have a new hardware version with better scalability. Is encryption something that you were waiting for?
I think if you wanted it, you really wanted it, right? You had a use case that specifically required you to use encryption somewhere, and traditionally what you have to do, encrypt the operating system, kind of abstract the encryption at the logical layer versus the virtualization layer, so they weren't really playing in tandem. Now to be able to say encryption's a first-class citizen, you can actually apply it kind of programmatically to the virtual machine, even to vMotion now supports encryption across the wire. I think if you needed that for some reason, this is going to be a boon to you, because the other workarounds just weren't integrated in the flow of vSphere, right? So I think it's a feature that if you're looking for it, you're going to be really happy, and if not, you're like, okay, I'll use that in the future.
Okay. So all those posts are on your website. You might want to mention the URL of your website once more.
It's wahlnetwork.com, wahlnetwork.com.
Okay, that's not the only thing we can find there. Recently you started recording podcasts. How are they received in the community?
Oh, awesome. So I co-host the Datanauts podcast with my friend Ethan Banks over at packetpushers.net. We've actually released 56 shows now, one every week, so we're almost at the 1 year marker, or just over the 1 year marker. And it's been phenomenal because we're trying to bust down IT silos. You know, you've got storage and network and compute, and we typically work in our own bubble. And how can we collaborate across those silos and start pulling in the practices that the folks in the development shops are doing, the cloud folks, the folks at Pivotal and Chef and Ansible, and those kind of ideas, pull that all in together, build a better IT shop holistically. Some soft skills, we just had John Troyer on, everyone knows the guy with the big Wookiee suit, the sparkly jacket. So we've had some really cool guests that come on and share their knowledge and their time. And we're at the 5+ figures downloads per show, which is, it really feels great to have people come up and say, I listened to your show, it made me think of something that I didn't realize was out there, and now I'm learning because of it. So I love it.
Okay, great. So you're at Rubrik still, it's a nice startup. What are the new features you are presenting this year on the VMworld? Do you have some new things?
Oh, thanks for complimenting it first, I appreciate that. Recently we announced the 3rd generation platform for Rubrik. So it's codenamed Firefly because I'm a nerd and I love Joss Whedon's Firefly show. And the idea is we already had virtual with VMware, makes sense, they're huge in the data center, you attack the market share. But now we're going to go after physical as well. So if you're doing bare metal Microsoft SQL or bare metal Linux, which is very common for big databases, as well as application servers, container host servers, things like that, we support that. And that policy engine that Rubrik runs on, where it's build a configuration policy, apply it to an object, and it does the work for you, it's the same policy engine for those bare metal workloads. So you can build one policy that can be applied to physical, virtual, and databases holistically, right? So I think as an administrator, you're like, great, click, done, all of my stuff is backed up, it's either on-prem, in the cloud, or both. It just makes life pretty easy. We're also offering erasure coding, which is a popular way to do data placement on a file system. So when you go to 3rd generation platform, you get double the space. So it's like, why would you say no to that?
It's an obvious choice. Yeah. Well, many thanks, Chris. So you have your blog, you have your podcast, you're doing a great job at Rubrik. A nice shout out for you. You might want to share your Twitter handle so everyone can follow you on Twitter.
Oh, sure. It's at Chris Wahl. It's ChrisWahl. Many thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it.